I just zoomed in. Just confirm, Chanakya, if you can see my screen in full screen mode.
Yes, I can see it perfectly. All right. Great.
All right. I think we're good to start, so we can proceed.
Done, Rahil. Great. Over to you then, Rahil. Yours.
Thank you, Chanakya. Good morning, everyone. My name is Rahil Ahmed. I'm working at Redington Gulf as a partner solutions architect. I help partner in building solutions on AWS and in advising them how they can use AWS platform, what kind of use cases you can build on AWS. So I'm also involved in partner enablement, right? So the topic for today's webinar is security best practices on AWS. How you can, leverage the AWS security framework, how you can make sure that you're following best practices while running your application in AWS, so that you don't have to make any sort of compromises. And we will also try to demystify uh, security framework architecture. So let's get started. Can move my screen. Okay. So before we jump into security related services, and before we discuss about the security framework, it is very important to understand how security works now. Because in back in old days, it was, the security standards were maintained in an Excel sheet, or there was a checklist which we need to follow just to make sure that all the security policies are enforced. It's no longer, it doesn't work in the modern world, because security responses, security findings are very much automated, and we use automated template to 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 make sure that security policies are enforced. So we no longer maintain those checkbooks, we no longer maintain those Excel sheets, right? So it's pretty much automated now. If we talk about challenges, as we go big on AWS, or as we go big on any platform, even on premises. So the large data set is one of the challenges. Why? Because the more data you have, the more examination you have to make, right? The more analysis you have to make, and it will take time, right? Sometimes there are a lot of false security alert. So this also is a problem. And of course we have shortage of security professionals. So we at times, even if we talk about on premises, it's very hard to maintain the security infrastructure, and we need an army of team, right, who can manage our security infrastructure. So that's where we will see how you can use AWS platform to uh, to offload a lot of security operational related activities to AWS, and you can focus mostly on the security analysis and threat mitigation part. We'll see in the upcoming slides. Now let's talk about AWS security design principle. How does it start? So as you can see, as if we go down, we see that it all starts for preparation. We have to prepare for the security event. Then we have to protect data in transit and rest. And the most important thing when we talk about security, that's where AWS stands out, is keep people away from data. That means giving people access, only the required access. So if, let's say, a person doesn't supposed to have access to one file or particular service, we should not give that access. And there should be a mechanism to track privilege management, right? In AWS, uh, we also pay special attention to automation. So all of the security best practices should be automated, right? So baseline security must be enforced at all level, right? And then AWS also focuses on traceability, because this is a key aspect. So if you cannot trace, you cannot detect, right? So traceability is another key principle, security design principle in AWS. uh, and then at the top you can see implement a strong identity foundation. So you can use number of identity services for user, for identity management, for user identity management, or roles management. So there are a number of services. But the key thing is traceability, having security at all level, and then following the security best practices, and then privilege management. This is the key component of our security design principle. Let's understand about shared responsibility model, because there is a myth that customers or the partners, they think that whenever they put their workload on AWS, so it's AWS who will manage everything, right? So we'll try to address it first, what AWS will manage and what you have to manage as a customer, right? Because many of the services like data center security or the global infrastructure security, physical security, right? These are all taken care by AWS. So you no longer have to make an investment on a data center security. You don't have to make investment on biometrics and other things. It's all taken care by AWS. Apart from that, at the software level, compute, storage, database, and networking is also taken care by AWS. When I say storage, so you mean I mean you don't have to configure RAID arrays, you don't have to manage your SAN storage or your NAS box, right? Similarly, when we talk about compute, you don't have to take care of the virtualization layer. So this is all taken care by AWS. And in databases, the database management, especially when you are using managed services like RDS, this also will be taken care by AWS. In terms of networking, you have to configure your network, right? You have to configure the networking rules, but connectivity, I mean, the physical aspect of the networking is taken care by AWS. So you don't have to manage your router, switches. This is no longer required. This is completely taken care by AWS. Now, as a customer, I should be worried about my data, right? Guys, I see there's a message in the chat. So if you have any question, we'll have a Q&A session in the end, so we can go through the question, all your questions in the end, right? Just keep a note of it, and we'll try to answer all your question in the end. Okay. So yeah, coming back to our discussion. So as a customer, I should take care of my data, right? I should encrypt my data. I should enforce server-side encryption to protect my data. This is something which AWS will not do for me by default. Of course, they will provide me services for encryption, but I have to make use of those services to encrypt my data, right? Similarly, operating system configuration and network firewall configuration, this all will be taken care by the customer. So example, operating system patching, right? Disabling or enabling firewall configuration, it's all done by the customer. Now, if you're building a platform, let's say if you're setting up a Hadoop cluster, or if you're setting up any application, SAP application, or any Microsoft application in AWS, this is our responsibility. So we have to take care of our application, right? And then of course the customer data. Customer data has to be, taken care by AWS. The security aspect of the customer data should be managed by the customer. AWS will have no insight in your data, right? They don't know what you are storing. So you have to make sure that your data is protected and you are following the security best practices for your customer data, right? It's very important to understand, what is a shared responsibility model. So it makes our life easy, right? So out of the box, AWS uh, will secure its resources like global infrastructure. They will also secure software services, software resources. They'll take care of networking, database, storage, compute. But then as a customer, we have certain responsibility. We have to encrypt our data. We have to secure our customer data. We have to take care of network and firewall configuration. We have to take care of platform identity management, right? Of course, there are services, but it requires configuration. So this configuration has to be done by us. Right. Now let's talk about AWS security solution. So if we talk about security lifecycle, it all starts with identification, right? If you can't identify security threat, you cannot protect yourself, right? So the first step itself is identification. Then you will talk about protection, right? And the protection itself, it has multiple phases. So first it has to be detected, and then you'll try to automate the response, and investigation has to be done, just to make sure it's not a false alert. And then you can recover from the security incident. So this is a life cycle of a security uh, incident. So if you talk about identification, AWS provides number of services for identification. So you can have AWS config, through which you can monitor, or through which you can track your resources, who made changes in your resources, what changes were made, right? And then for protection, you have multiple services. You can protect your networking via Amazon VPC. You'll have web application firewalls. You will have firewall manager. You know, and like that, there are tons of services which AWS offer for protection. Now, for automation, you can automate most of the actions through Lambda and CloudWatch event. So you can have a automated reply through CloudWatch event and Lambda function. You can make use of it. For investigation, uh, if you want to see our traffic trends, or if you want to investigate how much traffic went out of my uh, VPC, then there are services such as CloudWatch and CloudTrail, which does the audit logs, or like which user did what activity. So these services really help us in investigation. And finally, we do the recovery, maybe manually and maybe in an automated manner. So preferred is the automated manner. We should have an automated response to a security incident, right? Now let's talk about the identification stage. So it all starts with log inputs. So you should collect your logs as much as possible. So all the logs have to be aggregated. So logs related to audit, user activities, and API usage. These are all stored in CloudTrail. So please make sure that you enable CloudTrail services for all your account. Then flow logs related to VPC traffic, what comes into your data center, what goes out of your data center. So all ingress and egress traffics are captured in VPC flow logs. Just make sure you also enable flow log, and you store the flow logs in a central location, maybe in S3 bucket, and then you also examine those flow logs, right? So the first step itself is to enable and to make sure that we have the logs, just to make sure that we can identify threat. So please make sure that you enable VPC flow logs. Similarly, CloudWatch logs can be enabled. So if you have AWS resources, you can install CloudWatch agents just so that they can send the logs directly to CloudWatch. And from there, you can do the examination. Similarly, DNS logs also must be enabled. So if you're using Route 53, or if you're using, VPC DNS, then you make sure VPC DNS resolver logs are also enabled and it is captured. Now you can make use of GuardDuty for intelligent threat analysis. How? The first thing is you should enable GuardDuty, right? Once you enable GuardDuty, it will aggregate all the logs from CloudTrail, from VPC flow logs, and from DNS, uh, all the DNS query logs from Route 53 or VPC resolvers. And then GuardDuty can perform intelligent threat detection. Just keep in mind that it detects the threat, right? And if you have to mitigate the threat, you have to use Lambda function for automatic remediation, right? So GuardDuty itself will not, remediate the threat. It will identify. It will help you in identifying the potential threat, and then we have to take actions, right? So very interesting service. It uses AWS machine learning engines to detect what is normal traffic and what traffic is coming from an unusual source. Based on that, the threats will be detected. Also, we have Security Hub, AWS Security Hub, right? So what AWS Security Hub does, it quickly assess your high priority security alerts and compliance status across AWS accounts. So if you have one account or multiple account, all the high priority security alerts can be assessed, and Based on that, you will be able to identify if there is a potential security threat or not. AWS Security Hub will also integrate with your GuardDuty, with Inspector, Macy, right? So you all secure. You can say it's your security dashboard. It's your corporate security dashboard where you can see all the security alert compliance status in a single dashboard. And then, as we discussed, you can take actions for those security incident via Lambda function, or you can take manual actions by yourself. Now, why Security Hub was created? What is the reason behind Security Hub creation? So the reason was very simple. So the customers will get visibility, what is happening inside their infrastructure, how secure is their infrastructure. They can validate security configuration from a single dashboard. Security Hub also helps in threat detection. What are possible threat detection? So of course you have GuardDuty for intelligent threat detection, but it's good to have a single dashboard where you can have security visibility, things related to security configuration, and you can take automatic actions for threat remediation. So threat detection is one of the feature of Security Hub. And then to manage risk in a proper way. So risk management also can be done through Security Hub. What is Security Hub? Right. So there's no one term to define Security Hub. So it's two parts CSPM, one part SIEM, and one part SOAR. Right. So it's cloud security posture management. So you can have a visibility about your cloud security standards. You can see all your standards in a single dashboard, right? You know what is the security level of a particular AWS resource or a service. And then Security Hub can also be your SIM because you can have a visibility about security information and event management. You will be able to identify potential risk. And then Security Hub can also be SOAR. So SOAR is security orchestration, automation, and response. So you can orchestrate your security rules. You can automate your security rules and responses via Security Hub. So very interesting service. And it makes your life easy also because you can present a single dashboard to maybe your security manager, and there itself they can see what is happening inside your infrastructure. Now, how does it work? Right. So all your findings, of course, the first step was identification. So you have to have logs, right? Otherwise you cannot make use of Security Hub. So just make sure you have logs, you have all your findings captured, right? Then these findings can be sent to Security Hub, right? So, and also an analyst can do the investigation on Security Hub. If an analyst finds something, you know, if an analyst finds something alarming, he can also change, or he can also add those findings in the Security Hub. Then the Security Hub can integrate with your CloudWatch event for automated action via Lambda functions or via third-party tools, right? There are many third-party tools which can help you in taking automated action. You can also take actions on Slack, right? You can have a chat bot, and using Slack itself, you can take automated actions, right? We talked about a config, and we talked about configuration rules, right? So AWS config is a service basically, which allows us to continuously record and continuously assess services. Means who made what changes at what time. So you will be able to have to see the history of AWS resources, what changes were made, what time, and which user made the changes, what APIs were accessed for a service, right? And you can also set up config rules to make sure that you are meeting your security standards and policies. So this is just to give you a snapshot how config looks like, right? So here we have taken an example of an S3 bucket, right? So you can see what changes have been made. On 17th October, there was a change, and all those histories are recorded. What APIs were called, what changes were made. So everything is there in the dashboard itself. Now we also have CloudWatch events, right? Uh, CloudWatch events basically help us to create automated rules, right? So you can have AWS services, you can have multiple AWS APIs, you can have custom events, you can send all those events to CloudWatch, and in CloudWatch event you can create automated rules just to make sure that if those events occur, what actions we have to perform. For example, uh, let's say we want to make an automated action for snapshot. So if we have to take a snapshot, if so in this case the event could be time itself. So at, let's say, 3 p.m. or 4 p.m, take a snapshot. So that's an event, so we can write a Lambda function for it. Similarly, if there is any object that gets uploaded into S3 buckets, or if there is any log entry or log item that got uploaded in S3 bucket, we want to parse it to uh, our GuardDuty. So that's those sort of actions you can you can do. Those sort of actions you can take via CloudWatch event, right? For automated remediation, we also touch base. It's mostly through Lambda. So how it will work? Basically, you will have threat detection. So this will happen through GuardDuty. And once the threat is detected, you will create a CloudWatch event for that particular threat. You will also want to, notify, or you also want to report this event to your security team. You may want to send an alert that this event has happened, right? And after that, CloudWatch event can trigger a Lambda function to mitigate or to take actions for against the security incident. So in an automated remediation, it remediate a compromised instance, right? This is just an example. So if you are running a virtual machines, it can automatically remediate a compromised virtual machine. But it can also, just to give you an idea, it can also integrate with other AWS service, not only EC2 instance or virtual machines. It can also integrate with your block storage. You can have it integrated with S3, right? Object storage. You can integrate with your database. So if there is any parameter change that happens in the database, a Lambda function can be triggered to notify users and to do a cross check whether the parameter, if the parameter changes were done by a authorized user or not, right? So you can, I mean, sky is the limit. So you can imagine what use cases you can build. But generally, it will be 3-step. So detect, report, and act. So detection will happen through GuardDuty. Report, you can use CloudWatch event to send notification. And then indeed, a CloudWatch event can, integrate or can trigger a Lambda function to take actions. So reporting happens here in CloudWatch event, action happens in Lambda, and detection happens in GuardDuty, right? GuardDuty itself cannot detect. You have to feed the logs, as we discussed in our previous slide. So you have to supply the logs from VPC flow logs and VPC DNS resolver logs. Then only it can detect, right? So just make sure you enable it. So in threat remediation automation, so we will have CloudWatch, a dashboard to visualize threat events. So remediation workflows you can create in CloudWatch if you want. What steps have to be followed if a particular threat happens or if a particular security incident occur. Then you will use Lambda function to take actions. So you can run your code for virtually any kind of application or backend services. If you're comfortable in, let's say, Node.js, PHP, you can write a function to do a particular, to take a particular action. And then you have systems managers. So systems manager can automate a lot of activities for your EC2 instances, like patching and proactively mitigate threats at the instance level. Now we can, I think now since we have touched base upon most of the AWS services related to security, we can talk about AWS Security Framework, right? So in your left hand side, we have sections and action. So it's the mode, right? If we are in the react mode or trigger mode or learn mode, it's all actually, it's we call it initiate. It's the initiate mode. So in initiate, you will actually react, trigger, and learn. So you can react via config rules, you can react via CloudWatch events, you can have log passing, right? This way you can react. Triggering, as we know, it's all done by Lambda. Learning can be through CloudWatch logs. So learning means, you should have the logs, then only you can learn, right? Learning in the sense, how should I say, learning means, to have the information. So you will have information only when you have the logs, right? I hope it's clear. So then it's about execution. How will you execute your security standards? So first thing is priority action. So you can restart service, you can delete users, and so on, right? So you can have your actions defined. What actions have to be taken if a security incident happened, right? So you should know that, basically. Then forensics comes in. You have to do the discovery, who did what, when the incident occurred, what was the action taken, what was the cause of the incident. Then you will have forensics. You can take countermeasures like disable access key, isolate instance, and so on. Then you can send an alert. For alerting, you have SNS. So using notification service, you can send you can send an HTML alert, or you can send an email, or you can send an alert to the ticketing system. And then logging. So logging, again, it can be done in the ticketing system. It can be, uh, it can be logged in a database, depending upon where you are logging your incident. So this is about security framework. There are two modes: initiate and execution. Initiate, it's react, trigger, and learn. So you have services for all these stages. And execution, it's mostly about the actions that we need to take. So we as a security professional, we should know what actions have to be taken if a particular security incident happened. And then we have services to automate those actions. Let's take a quick example of an automated security response, right? And how it'll work. So basically, we know that we are using CloudWatch event and Lambda function for the automated security response. So again, the sources can be multiple. You can have findings coming from GuardDuty, from Macy, from Config, from CloudTrail. This all comes in CloudWatch event. And in CloudWatch event, we will have the rules. We will have event rules to trigger a particular Lambda function, and then the Lambda function will actually uh, mitigate the threat. And parallelly, it can also send notification, a Slack notification, or maybe an SMS notification that this threat has been mitigated. Or a Lambda function can sometimes call another AWS APIs, maybe external APIs, to take particular action. So here we see that we have detect, investigate, and respond phase. Detection is on your extreme left hand side. We have services for that. Investigation, again, you will use CloudWatch for investigation. CloudWatch event is basically for reaction, and this is for action, to take particular action, right? Let's talk about, now we know about the framework. We have discussed about these automated security response. Let's talk about best practices. So the best practices, especially for an application, is to have multi-layered approach to defending application from fraud and abuse, right? So you should have a layered architecture for your application. If you want to keep application online, you want to minimize downtime, and if you don't want any sort of outage, right? And you want to uh, reduce the number of attacks, or you just want to make sure that your infrastructure should absorb all the attacks that comes in, you should use DDoS. So for DDoS, there are services which can help you in DDoS, right? CloudFront can help you with DDoS protection. AWS Shield itself can help you with DDoS protection, especially if you have web application. So this can absorb the attack. So that means your application will still work if there is an attack. Now, to remove the attack or to minimize the attack, you should use web application firewall. So if you have a web application and you just want to make sure that only authorized users or only legitimate users access your application, then you should use WAF. So what WAF does, it keeps application from being accessed by unauthorized individuals, right? So inside WAF, you can create your WAF ACLs, you can have WAF rules for to protect your application. Depending on what sort of application you are building, you can set up the WAF rule accordingly, right? And then you should also protect against bad bot. You should also protect against uh, frauds that are happening through bots. So anti-bot and anti-automation, anti-fraud technology can also help you in absorbing that those sort of attack. Now we see that, and people use an automation engine to trigger or to make an attack. So not only 1, 2, 3 requests will come from a user, but they'll send 10,000 or 50,000 requests from a particular source, and this is through an automation software. So we want to protect us from those sort of attack. Again, if you use WAF and DDoS in combination, this can help you in protection against those automation software which generates bad request. Right. So this is about the multi-layered approach, how you should use multi-layered approach for application protection. So guys, this was a quick intro about AWS security services and about AWS Security Framework. So if you have any question, I mean, we can have a quick Q&A session now. What I'll do, I'll stop sharing my screen and I'll go through your questions. If you have any question, you can put it in the chat box. Guys, if you don't have any question, I think we can end the webinar here. So I'll give you one more minute. If you have any question, you can drop in the chat box. Otherwise, I'll share my email ID. You can just drop an email and we'll get in touch with you. We'll be happy to answer your questions.